Ralph Winnie is with the Eurasian Business Coalition here in Washington. He serves as director of the China Program and Global Business Development. Here's the statement that was released late today, at least part of it. It reads, in light of China's unfair retaliation, I've instructed the USTR to consider whether $100 billion of additional tariffs would be appropriate under Section 301, and if so, to identify the products upon which to impose such tariffs. I talked to a couple of businessmen in the last couple of days who do a lot of fair trading with China. One had poured over the list and said, phew, I dodged the bullet. I imagine there's some that feel like they dodged the bullets. Now, $100 billion, they're like, oh my gosh. What's going to be the ripple effect for people who do business with China?
Well, I think you're seeing the Chinese are retaliating and are imposing duties on pork and fruit. And it's very interesting to see whether China will exempt Chinese-owned American suppliers like Smithfield Farms, which is ramping up exports into China.
But the tit for tat, if there's another tap that's coming after this, how long before this thing really starts? Nothing's been done yet. It's just proposals. But how long before the shouting match gets kind of ugly?
Well, I think it's all in the art of negotiation. I mean, Trump is a businessman, and he's going to keep forcing the Chinese to come to the table and negotiate. And I think the 60-day waiting period is going to be extremely effective, because what's going to happen is you're going to have the Treasury impose restrictions on Chinese-controlled companies and funds that are looking to acquire U.S. companies with sensitive technology. At the same time, you're going to have industry lobbyists and lawmakers pour through the list of 1,300 roughly different industries that could be adversely affected and sort of narrow that down. And at the same time, it gives Beijing the space to be able to deal effectively with what Trump has been pushing, and that is the intellectual property issue.
It's interesting. It goes on to say in this release that he's instructed the Secretary of Agriculture, with the support of other members of the cabinet, to use broad authority to implement a plan to protect our farmers and agricultural interests. Just yesterday, Chinese Vice Minister of Finance Zhu Guangyo even thanked the soybean farmers in the U.S. for declaring their opposition to these proposed tariffs. Is this an issue where some of his base is starting to put pressure on Trump? Look, you got to back your foot off the gas, and this is his way of trying to appease them.
Well, certainly a lot of the states that would be targeted by the sanctions that China is looking to impose are states that actually voted for Trump, whether it's Nebraska, Iowa, Wisconsin, Michigan. It's going to be, these are states that would be adversely impacted. And the issue is going to be whether the U.S., Japan, and the EU are going to come together and start imposing sanctions on state-owned enterprises. Because that's Trump's big issue, is that China is trying to operate as a non-market economy with a market economy status. And while President Xi has said it's important for market forces to help accelerate growth within China, he's also going to be imposing regulations to really strengthen the state-owned companies. And this is going to be a real tit for tat, because Trump is wanting to protect domestic industry. He ran on that issue as a candidate, and but will that backfire and hurt the people that got him into office? So it just remains to be seen.
That may be the million-dollar question. It's interesting, though. The Wall Street, though, reacted differently today than it has. It's been kind of a roller coaster. And one analyst said the U.S. and China are the two biggest kids in the playground, but they don't really want to fight. The history of the Trump administration is make a big, bold statement, add some craziness, and then come up with a bold, pragmatic solution. Is that how you see it?
I think it is. You know, Trump has come out and said, I view China as a friend. I've notified China, and we are in the middle of negotiations. That's the tactic of their administration. They're not saying we want a trade war, we want to punish China. It's all about negotiation. And what the Chinese have now said is, yeah, we want to negotiate, we want to come to the table, but the Chinese are still trying to figure out what it is that Trump and/or America wants, and also whether Trump will be able to withstand the consequences of these actions.
Well, we'll be watching it. Ralph Winnie, always a pleasure talking to you. Thanks for coming in.